So what drove you out of Christianity? Can't be evil, because you believe God still exists and there's evil.
To be fair, you've raised some good points there, and I'm not sure I can conjure up the brain power to combat those. I just want to make sure I'm not Muslim, but can I still be up here? I'm not Christian either.
Well, if you can ask questions about the Trinity, it's about Trinity.
It has to be Trinity.
So what are you, dude? What is the topic is Trinity? What are you?
Okay, well, I'd say highly questioning ex-Christian at this point.
Okay, but you have a beard like a Muslim, so what are you? What are you?
If I don't have a beard, I look like I'm 12 years old, so I have to have a beard. You know, that's how it goes.
All right, so how long you been ex-Christian?
I'd say a good 3 or 4 months now.
Okay, so go ahead. What's your first question?
It's sort of, I can't formulate in a question so much. It's kind of
and how can I answer, Isaac? How can I answer if you're not going to put in a question?
Well, I guess it's to do with the problem of evil and suffering. So God's meant to be all loving, all good.
Sure.
But how does that relate into, you know, if he's all good, all loving, all good?
You're asking a question that's been answered for 2,000 years, and you want to answer in 5 minutes on a discussion about Trinity. But my first question to you would be, because we want to keep it on Trinity. It's not because I'm avoiding. I've answered on my live stream. So if you ever want an in-depth discussion on it, you'd come and ask me, and we can spend the entirety of this guy, because I've already done it. And people more qualified than me. Number one, if you are not assuming God exists, because you're an ex-Christian.
I assume he exists.
Do you believe God exists?
Yes, in some form.
Okay, so then that's a problem, not just for a Christian, because you're acknowledging God exists, but then you say there's evil. So then you yourself see there's nothing incompatible with God existing and evil existing. So I don't understand your question.
Okay, so I was coming at the standpoint of God is outside of time and therefore not bound by time. So he sees time from a non-linear perspective. And
how do you know that?
Sure.
Since you're not a prophet, your assumption is purely subjective. How do you know God is outside of time? How do you know
I was taking it from the Christian perspective.
But you're not a Christian. You can't assume the Christian worldview. And even in Christianity, there are Christians who have different understandings of God's relationship to time.
Sure.
So how do you know God is outside of time?
Epistemically, I can't say that I do definitely know he's outside of time.
So you're giving me your subjective opinion, but you've already acknowledged evil exists and God exists. So you're acknowledging there's nothing incompatible. So I don't understand your objection. How would this lead you outside of Christianity and not to atheism, because you're still a theist?
Yes.
Which means that your rejection of Christianity for evil shows you're inconsistent, because if evil is the problem, then anyone who believes in God would have to deal with that issue. But you still say, no, I believe in God and evil, there's nothing incompatible. So what drove you out of Christianity? Can't be evil, because you believe God still exists and there's evil.
To be fair, you've raised some good points there, and I'm not sure I can conjure up the brain power to combat those.
So do me a favor.
Sure.
Take my Skype.
Yep.
Contact me on Skype. We'll go live, because this is about the Trinity, because I want to talk with you. No, honestly, I do. But because it's about the Trinity. So Skype, it's Benny.
Okay.
It's going to be all lowercase.
Yeah.
Benny. Yeah. BENNY.
Got it.
Underscore, underline.
Yeah.
Malik, MALIK. And the number 3. Benny underscore Malik 3.
Got it. Okay.
Let me know it's you. Sometime when I get back, Lord willing, I'll bring you up. We can talk about this.
Okay. I do have one question about the Trinity, if you don't mind.
Okay. Sure.
In the Gospels, there's some varying views of Jesus's divinity. So from like a local theology standpoint.
All the Gospels affirm that he's God in the flesh. Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
But is this revelation not kind of developing? It wasn't like a sort of instantaneous standpoint.
I just said Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John all affirm Jesus is God in the flesh. So what developed?
Well, I'm guessing, being humans, they wouldn't have had this initial standpoint from the get-go of knowing Jesus Christ.
Okay, now I'm going to repeat it a third time, Isaac.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, sure.
All the Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, affirm that Jesus is God in the flesh.
I understand.
So where's the development?
Well, maybe it's extra, rather not in the Gospels. I haven't really read them for quite some time now. But I was under the impression that they had a developing revelation rather than it was.
You can tell me what you think, but I'm giving you facts.
Sure.
Facts will trump subjective feelings.
Yeah,
Mark begins Mark 1 by affirming Jesus is the Yahweh God of Isaiah, who comes to redeem Israel. He starts that in chapter 1.
Sure.
Matthew does the same, Luke does the same, and John, and even Paul. So how are you going to keep telling me what you think, that there's a development, when I just said all of them affirm Jesus is God in the flesh? And I can go through it systematically and show you.
Sure. My only answer to that is I'm kind of on a massive scholarly analysis currently, Bart Ehrman type stuff. So
he's on a massive scholarly analysis.
And so you want me to bombard you with scholars like Larry Hurtado, Richard Bauckham, Larry Hurtado, and these are considered some of the prominent New Testament scholars. Larry Hurtado has deceased. Michael F. Bird, Robert Bowman Jr., who's all written massive tomes showing that all the Gospels and Paul affirm Jesus is God in the flesh. Okay. Even Bart Ehrman, who's an atheist agnostic, says that Matthew, Luke, Mark, Luke affirm Jesus is God, but in different senses than John. And he's wrong, by the way, but still he's saying, Mark portrays Jesus as becoming divine, most likely at baptism. Matthew and Luke say that Jesus became divine at the conception of his mother's womb. Paul believes that Jesus is the pre-existent divine angel of the Lord. And John says that Jesus is uncreated God who's always existed with the Father. But he's still saying they all affirm he's divine. I only mention him because he's agnostic, but he's wrong about Mark thinking Jesus became God at the baptism, because Mark already portrays Jesus as God from chapter 1. And I can easily demonstrate that.
Okay, sure. I guess I was getting at, those differing perspectives, although they do claim divinity of Jesus. Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Apart from that,
if you want more on this, you got to go to my YouTube channel, my blog. Search for Trinity, deity of Christ, and I spent sessions and written articles on Mark alone, showing that Jesus is Yahweh in the flesh. And because I mentioned Mark, because according to modern scholarship, Mark is the first of the Gospels written. So I went with the first and show the consistency with the later ones.
Sure. Okay. So
reach out to me because I want to talk to you. You'll come back if you're open.
It's just the time difference. I live in the UK, so it's like 2:30.
All right, brother. I'll make time for you. Don't worry about it. I don't need beauty sleep. I'm beautiful as it is.
Yeah, you are. So thanks for having me.
God bless you. God bless you, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.